I'd like to reconvene the regular council meeting for what day are we today? July 23rd. So we'll go straight into section 18.1, and that's the DVP for 8220 Simpson Road, and we'll ask Ms. Toohey to introduce this item. Thank you.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. As Mayor Holmes said, tonight I am presenting a development variance permit for 8220 Simpson Road. This application is to increase the farm home plate size from the regulated 905 square metres to 995. And this is to facilitate the construction of a new principal dwelling. As I said, the application here is for a single-storey home with no detached accessory buildings, and these are renderings of the subject house that they are proposing. The subject property is zoned agricultural small acreage and is designated agricultural within our official community plan. And as I said, allows for a maximum farm home plate for the A1 zoning of 905 square metres. The district zoning bylaw allows for only one farm home plate, and within that farm home plate, a lot coverage of 45%. Thank you, Greg. The Agricultural Land Act talks to strategic placement of the residence, and this is to benefit or optimise the agricultural operation, and that the siting of the residence should be done appropriately to reduce the use of productive land for farming. Thank you, Greg. The original home, so this is some background into this application. The original home was located here, as shown on the map. It had a principal home as well as accessory buildings, and a farm home plate of approximately 2,216 square metres, so pretty large. And this is before it was demolished in the year 2018. In 2018, new owners took ownership, demolished the house that was on the property, and moved a modular home into the southwest corner. This was all done with permits and done in the appropriate manner. An application was submitted to the district. The original variance was actually to build a principal home with a home plate size of 1,804 square metres. And as you see here, this was the very first application that was made. District staff voiced concern over the size of the farm home plate that was actually proposed, basically because it was of double the regular size, regulated size. And so we informed the applicant that we would actually be recommending denial, and this was at the point of Agricultural Advisory Committee meeting. Because of the aforementioned, the applicant actually revised their application and presented a modified option to the Commission themselves with a farm home plate reduced size of 995 square metres. And this was at our June 20th meeting. During the meeting, some of the main comments were that the committee members noted that small farms like this one are important to preserve the future agricultural production. There has been no agricultural production on this property from our historical GIS mapping for about 20 years. Committee members also encourage the applicant, when they do take over the property and build their new house, if they are not looking to do any agricultural production themselves, but to actually consider leasing the land to the Young Farmers Association. And the committee members discussed redesigning, and the willingness to reduce the residential home plate by the applicant was supported as well. So the Commission therefore denied our original recommendation presented by staff and proposed a new motion to accept the revised site plan of the 995 square metres, and that then was carried. The comments received from our referral process are stated here, with the fire department voicing some concerns at the distance from the nearest hydrant on Simpson Road, as well as the ALC also recommending that a notice of intent of soil disposition is taken out. At that stage, staff recommended the applicant do so as soon as possible, as wait times could be quite long, and the applicant has done, and it has been approved already. So to look over the application, the proposal complies with all of the ALR regulations. They have a maximum dwelling size of 500 square metres. This house comes well in under that. Although the proposal does not conform with the district's farm home plate zoning bylaw, it is, after the revision, it is now a minimal proposal that they're putting forward of 995. The reason as well, because of the larger area, is because it is a ground dwelling principal house that they're proposing. Single story. This is for aging relatives that are actually going to be living with the family who are building it. So they needed that larger envelope for the single story for all of the occupants. And also the applicant is also removing the modular home that is not staying. So the modular home is taken away. So no secondary farm home plate. And so moving back to just a single farm home plate with a single dwelling on it. And with that, staff's recommendation is on the board here, and I will take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Council, any questions? Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Shannon. Can you tell me, in the home plate, what is allowed outside of the home plate, as if this is a hobby farm or a small farm? What type of structures are allowed beyond the home plate?
Yep, to Councillor Patton through the Mayor. You're allowed agricultural buildings outside of the farm home plate up to 10% lot coverage. So they can place any agricultural buildings that are used solely for agricultural purposes. Anything residential, swimming pools, car garages, all have to be within that farm home plate.
Thank you.
Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Shannon. A quick question. I noticed you mentioned that the intent is to remove the modular home. Is there any assurances that that will be done? Yes, so we have got it as one of our conditions of the development variance permit that the modular home will be removed. As far as I know today, we do have a moving permit for it. It has actually been purchased for another applicant that's been put in. So that has been made one of the conditions. So we know that it's going to be, we will retain a security if it's not done by the time it's moved on.
Hello? No.
Okay, thank you. I was just going to note that the bylaw allows 45% coverage in the farm home plate, and this variance still only comes to a total of 37%, and so I find that reasonable.
Councillor Melton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move the staff recommendation.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Counselor Betts, any further discussion, questions? I'll call the question. All in favor? And none opposed. That carries. Moving on to item 18.2, multifamily development permit with variance on Julia Street and Mr. Penner.
There we go. Yeah, good evening, everyone. It's great to see everyone. I know we've all had the chance to meet through other initiatives going on here in the district on the planning front, but in the context of the next two presentations and the applications that we're going to go through, our team has been providing some interim support just to the district planning office with Brad and his team, just to help move some of these files along over the course of the summer as, you know, new hires are being made and it's vacation time. So just to keep up with the speed of business, that's been our role, just providing some interim support. So the first application, the Julia Street development permit, just for context, in the past, the site had gone through a official community plan redesignation to gateway commercial. It also had gone through a rezoning process to residential high density. And now we're at the development permit stage. So again, those were approved in the past as part of the rezoning application. There was a site-specific request to increase the floor area ratio from 1.2 to 2.7. In essence, that was just a sizable density increase, but something that aligned with the downtown neighborhood action plan that was in place. So right now we are at the development permit stage, and really just to give an overview of the proposal again. So it is an 84-unit rental apartment building that contains a mix of studio 1 and 2 bedroom units. In terms of parking, that's going to be provided through a 2-story underground parkade. Within the building, we'll see it on the next slide. There's a series of amenity areas, both indoor and outdoor, contained within the building and on site. And what this development permit also includes is some variances for front setback requirements and amenity requirements. And I'll go through that just in a second here. So these are just two other concept renderings of the building from street grade. This is the proposed floor plan. There's there. I don't know if you can see it very well. I don't think we can see the pointer, but on the main floor, you'll notice there's 2 large areas on the main floor that are dedicated as indoor amenity areas. So it's floor 1. Floors 2 to 5 contain just, again, that mix of studio to 2-bedroom residential units. The 6th floor includes another indoor amenity area as well as an outdoor amenity area surrounded by another series of 1- and 2-bedroom units. And then this is just, again, the proposed site plan. So showing the apartment building outline. I know it's a little difficult to see some of the details there. And then the underground parkade level. So there's 126 parking stalls that have been included in the 2-level fully enclosed parkade that's accessed through a shared access with another portion of the site. Of note, within the parkade, the 126 stalls that have been allocated are in excess of the 95 that would be required under your existing zoning bylaw. And then just another note on the parkade, 16 of those stalls are for electric vehicles. So EV charging stalls are proposed. There's also, as you'll see in the supporting documents, the landscaping plan. And I'm going to go through this in a bit more detail later on. But it just shows some of the planting options that are going to propose to be included for the site and how they're oriented around the footprint of the building. And I'll break that down into detail in a few more slides here. So the variance summary, in addition to the development permit, the variance that's being requested is the first one to reduce the minimum front setback from 6 meters to 5.5. That's just, again, to accommodate the proposed building footprint within the site. The second variance that's requested is to reduce the on-site amenity space from 1,840 square meters to 1,455. And again, that's just to accommodate the proposed building within the footprints of the site, which has some unique, has a bit of a unique outline to it. One of the features going along with the proposed variance, the applicant has agreed to provide offsite amenity space as part of the amenity contribution. So this is, again, just another concept showing that offsite amenity space. That's a gateway feature coming off of the highway. So going into the multiple family development permit review. So the applicant is seeking a multiple family development permit. The objective of that development permit area is to ensure that large scale multifamily developments are attractive and compatible with their respective surroundings. So ensuring that any multifamily building is going to have limited impacts, aesthetically, functionally on the neighborhood surrounding it or on adjacent properties. So we've reviewed the application against the current guidelines that are in place, which really look at a whole bunch of things like site design, building design, parking and access, screening, landscaping, lighting. It's again a pretty robust checklist, and when we go through that, we evaluate the proposed building, the site plan, the drawings that are provided by the applicant based off of those checklist items in the guidelines. So based on our review, so the building itself is pretty near to Highway 97, and it's very visible to highway commuters. The site itself is surrounded by single-family dwellings, and to address that, there is a lot of trees, shrubs, greenery, again, other vegetative buffers that have been proposed to surround the site. So those, act twofold. One, they provide like a great amenity for building residents. They improve the aesthetics of the site. They add greenery to the site, but they also act as a vegetative buffer, to adjacent and surrounding properties. The site itself, there's walkthroughs through the property. It's well connected. There's strong pedestrian connections to the sidewalks and nearby roads. And as I mentioned before, the design does include ample outdoor amenity areas, including on-site gardens, lounging areas, and then the addition of the off-site amenity space, which is really intended to act as like an entry plaza into the community. And going back to the downtown neighborhood action plan and policies that have been included in the OCP with respect to the downtown, one of the key objectives is to enhance entry points into the community through aesthetically and well-designed buildings, but also through gateway features that act as a draw to motorists and traffic and people coming in and out of the community. Focusing a bit more on the amenity space, as I mentioned, under current zoning, when we factor in the number of units and the breakdown of residential units proposed for the building, the requirement for on-site amenity space would be 1,840 meters squared. The proposal from the applicant is to reduce that slightly by about 20% to 1,455. One comment that was noted on that is the quality of the amenity spaces provided is fairly high. So it's not just creating like a plaza with some benches. The proposed amenity areas include indoor, outdoor seating, garden, lounging areas. Around the site as well, there's private patios, as well as additional features like a water feature, fire pit, outdoor dining areas. So there is a lot of amenities that have been included in the site that will benefit residents and folks living there and visitors. In terms of the offsite amenity space, so this is the gateway feature that the applicant has agreed to provide as a condition of the development permit approval. You can see on the left, that's sort of the concept or site plan for that amenity space area. The image to the right is a bit of a mock-up showing what it would actually look like, driving down the highway. And again, it's just intended to really increase the attractiveness of that entry point into the community, as well as providing like a functional, outdoor gathering space for residents, of the building, but also anyone in the neighborhood or who's coming through. In terms of the building design, so it does achieve the majority of the design guidelines included in the multi-family development permit area. So that includes incorporating covered patios, entryways, shifting roof lines, building wall variations, and it also uses a variety of materials and colors. The scale and massing of the project, again, aligned with the direction of the recently completed Downtown Neighborhood Action Plan and the recent Downtown Official Community Plan amendments as well. So while it may seem like a sizable shift from the existing built kind of environment and built neighborhood around it, your planning documents in place have identified that site as an area to direct, higher levels of density and development in the future. And the surrounding neighborhood itself, through Bill 44 and through the Downtown Neighborhood Action Plan and recent downtown OCP amendments, is going to see a sizable increase over time in density as well. So while again, it may seem, maybe a little higher than what's surrounding it, over the long term, it's going to be pretty compatible with what gets built out in the immediate and surrounding area. So going a bit more into parking and access, as I was saying before, there was 121 parking spots. Sorry, I said 125 before. There's 121, which is 26 more than the required minimum. So that should alleviate any potential instance of on-street spillover. And again, just ensuring that there's more than enough parking for, guests, visitors, people that are, visiting the building. As I mentioned as well, there's the 16 electric vehicle charging stations. There's motorcycle parking, small vehicle parking. So a bit of a mixture down there. Another note, like being an underground parking facility, obviously, like we're hiding the parking facility. It's not a surface lot, which, the aesthetics of surface lots aren't ideal. Everything is hidden, contained within the footprint of the building. In terms of the landscaping, so again, screening, landscaping, lighting is provided throughout the site. Through back and forth with the district, the applicant agreed to revise part of their landscaping plan to include more native and drought tolerant plants, which have been included. So that's been integrated into the landscaping plan. There's also a variety of, again, greenery, shaded sitting areas, privacy shrubs, and then the further offsite landscaping improvements at the gateway kind of feature area as well. So, which also includes some on-site and off-site signage. So you can see the image on the left shows what's proposed for on-site signage. So again, concrete, timber signage. And then on the right, there's a render of the proposed signage for the gateway feature. So providing a welcome, to the District of Summerland entry sign into the community. In terms of external referral comments, so again, the development permit application was circulated, and there were no new external referral comments. The following comments below were, provided in the past, and from BC Transit, it was to ensure that safe, accessible pedestrian connections are available, ensuring that any sidewalk or pathway that are provided are accessible. So again, really just ensuring that, there's safe and accessible connections in and out of the site, which we feel have been demonstrated through the site plan and the building plan. Interior health, their comment was largely on considering providing opportunities for social connection. Again, that's, provided or satisfied through the on-site amenity spaces that have been included, as well as the off-site amenity space and gateway feature that's been agreed to by the applicant. In terms of internal referral comments, so again, this development permit application was circulated through all internal departments on May 7th. Some of the comments included further discussing accessibility features, including wheelchair and walker uses in the building. ensuring that it's important to, that the building and site meet provincial accessibility requirements, and that the landscaping plan is reviewed by district landscaping staff. And the recommendation to add fire smart plants to the landscaping plan. The development permit was brought to the Advisory Planning Commission. Their comments included just concerns about the impact of traffic on surrounding low-density residential neighborhood. Another comments that, the uses that are proposed are what's needed in Summerland. So again, a mix of studio, 1, 2 bedroom, smaller apartments. Comments about the APC liking the design of the apartment, specifically the staggering of decks, flat walls, the step back of the 6th floor. Concerns also were brought up that the district's long-range plans and OCP are not up to date to accommodate this project, and that a neighborhood plan may be needed for the surrounding single-family properties, and that surrounding residents should be engaged, and that the applicant could provide more neighborhood context for the immediate surrounding area from Julia Street to Turner Street. So as I was saying before, part of this discussion when we talk about density and development is just, again, highlighting the impact of Bill 44, which I know you've talked a lot about over the past few months. But the passing of the amendments to the zoning bylaw to align with the requirements from the province have really sort of limited the discrepancy between like this project and what is, in the surrounding area. So as I said, right now, it may seem like a big transition from a 6-story apartment building to a single family area, but that whole surrounding area has been upzoned in a sense to allow, much denser levels of development than what are currently or in the past have been allowed. So in terms of discussion, the proposed development does achieve a lot of the objectives contained in the Downtown Neighborhood Action Plan, which outline that site or identify that site as being part of a gateway commercial zone. So again, that focal entry point in that community where we want to see direct more intensive land uses, more active land uses, for a number of reasons. One, it's that kind of one of the few entry points in the community. You kind of want to have attractive buildings. You want to, in general, direct land uses that generate more traffic or more activity to areas that are close to a highway access point. It also meets the objective of the plan just to bring more people into the downtown, right? So that number of units will bring a significant amount of new residents into the downtown and surrounding area. In terms of the variance requested, so for the amenity area variance, it's felt that the reduction of the required on-site amenity area is acceptable because of the agreement of the developer, the applicant, to construct a large off-site amenity area, so the entry park plaza. And the front yard variance, again, it's pretty minor. It's like a less than 10% variance from the front setback. That's again just required to allow the building in its current form to proceed. So by increasing the floor area ratio, so as I mentioned, in the past it was 1.2. It's been increased to 2.6. This project really provides an efficient land use. And again, it's really about accommodating other core needs in the community, largely on new housing units being developed and having a mix of studio 1 and 2 bedroom rental units. The development has ample amenities, including the indoor and outdoor amenity spaces. The 2-story underground parkade will ensure that all parking for the site is sort of hidden from public view. It includes, again, electric vehicle charging stations, which, kind of achieve some of the district's sustainability objectives. The applicant has agreed to build additional offsite amenity space with outdoor seating, sculptures, landscaping, and signage at the gateway entry feature. And just in general, the building design works, to integrate with its surroundings. It uses varied roof lines, materials, colors, patio. It has, patios on the majority of the units, different materials and textures, and in the district's and staff's opinion, it fits very well with the intended objectives and goals of the downtown through the downtown neighborhood action plan. So through that all, the project is supported on a staff side, and staff's recommendation is for council to authorize the issuance of a multiple family development permit, number DP 22011 for a multifamily apartment residential building to be constructed at 9514 and 9518 Julia Street. And that the following variances to zoning bylaw number 20450 are approved, which includes a minimum front setback to be reduced from 6 meters to 5.5 meters, and to reduce the required on-site amenity area from 1,840 meters squared to 1,455.
Okay, thank you very much. You can maybe leave the staff recommendation up. That'd be good. Who wants to start? Councillor Peak.
Thank you very kindly, Your Worship. Very nice to see you, Dan, instead of in the public space. That's where we've mostly seen you on the open houses. My question is the amenity spaces that it's the one that has red circles on it. Site design amenity space, probably slide 15. Is this on the west side of the building? I'm sorry, I did that to you, Greg. It is slide 15. Okay. So is that this is the large, it looks like a large outdoor amenity space with tables and a covered area. And I'm just wondering, is that on the west side? Outdoor seating area under a pergola?
Yes, so it's kind of flipped around a little bit, but you can see it like.
The west side is at the top?
Yeah, so that'd be the top side. So it's sort of tucked in the back portion of the building.
So it's actually not on the west side, it's on the north side?
It would be on the west side. This is just
Okay,
sort of
this is
flip the other way around.
Okay, I have to say, I like the treatment on the outdoor amenity space. I don't have a problem with the trade-offs. I think that the developer has worked very hard to accommodate the remarks that were made from our own agencies on the advisory, et cetera. And I like the plantings that are going around. I think that will all help. So I'm quite pleased with what's being shown. Thank you.
But just for clarification, so this is the amenity space for the building itself, but there's also the amenity space on the highway turning off. That's where the big pretzels are.
I understand that,
okay.
yeah. Yeah, it's a garden area with a sign on it out of the gateway. And I like the sign.
Okay.
I like the wood and the cement. I think it's sophisticated, easy to read. I think that's good.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Changer.
So speaking about that second amenity, the one right off the highway with those pretzel looking things, is that just a mock-up, or is that actually what's going in?
That might be a question I would defer to Brad. My understanding is these are still somewhat conceptual in nature, and there might be flexibility in the actual build out, but this is what's being proposed at this time.
Okay. I think in my personal opinion, I think that those need a bit of work. I'm not sure if that is representative of Summerland coming into our downtown. I like that is going to be a nice amenity / park space. However, I think that if we want to encourage more people to use it, there needs to be some more benches, more trees, shade cover. I think that would make that space more usable rather than the pretzel designs. My feedback.
Can I quickly step in? I'm the architect and the landscape architect. Can I add a couple cents if I'm not out of?
Just a second, sir. Do we need council to? Or we just let them? Okay, sir, go ahead. Could you
So,
just state your name?
my name is Ruchir. I'm the architect and the landscape architect of this project. And yeah, the sculpture that you see is only one of the 10% odd space of the entry plaza. It's one of the elements. It's not essentially the principal use of the plaza itself. The plaza has been carefully designed and reviewed by the district itself a few times. We've done some changes, added seating areas, gathering spaces, trees. Even the planting and the planting species have been reviewed and critiqued by the district. And they've talked about what kind of planting, etc., will go in. They would like to have their own inputs about the kind of planting that is more pertinent and hardy with the local microclimate. And yeah, so there are multiple elements. This is just one of the elements which also is not final at this stage. And we discussed that we'll eventually go ahead and finalize the sculptural element at a later date. That's what I wanted to add here. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think, I mean, I personally don't have a problem with them, but I think it's we're dangerous territory if council's deciding what's art and what's not. That's why we illustrates why we need a public art policy. Does anybody have any questions for the architect and landscaper? Only we have him here? No? Oh, yes. Yeah, Councillor Betts.
Thank you. Thank you through the chair. My question actually is about the lack of 3-bedroom apartment units in the development. I know that recently in the media talking about a lack of rentals, it's really challenging for families with children to be able to find rentals, and that there's only studio 1 and 2-bedroom apartments in this. I mean, in principle, I'm in support of this project. I just thought that I would bring forward that there should be at least a couple of units for families with children. When we're talking about it's literally zoned as a multi-family development permit area. So I just thought I'd ask a question about why there aren't any in this proposal.
I will let the owner developer also who's sitting here as well to respond to this, but I will start by responding that once again, we went through an exercise of what is going to have market absorption and what is going to be required by the market by engaging a professional from CMHC background, because we were talking about affordable housing and all that stuff and what would be most recommended. And this is the kind of mix that was approved, and we had a series of discussions actually with them over the last 2 years or so. And that's how this mix was eventually created. And then there were talks about a few apartments being of a bigger square footage, etc. But then the square footage rates, both for rentals and everything, are so high now that they will not fall into the category of affordable housing. And also because the rates are beginning to be high and it's going to be a premium development, though it will have a percentage of affordable housing units, but rest of them which are on the market rate units for 3-bedroom would be very difficult for people to afford in the community. And that's eventually why we settled with this kind of a mix. I will let owner talk about it a little more.
Hi, this is Nav Olak. So yeah, I totally agree on what Ruchir has to say over here. So this is all taken into consideration with CMHC, and a complete analysis was done prior to the submission, basically, because obviously that's what the requirement, and the CMHC was wanting that this is what would be most efficient in terms of the drawings and the bedrooms, basically.
Okay. Yeah. I was wondering, I have a question myself. So there's going to be 16 EV parking stalls. I'm just wondering if there'd be an opportunity to expand that, increase that in the future, if if electric vehicles become more widespread than they are today?
So technically, there is no problem in doing some more rough-ins which can later be converted into EV stalls. That's technically a rather simple possibility. But there was a requirement based on the guidelines which we followed, and these many were thought to be optimum at this stage. Most comparable developments today that are being proposed have a similar percentage of EV charging stalls. There is also a little bit of a situation where EV charging stalls are being abused and not being available to other people with non-EV vehicles. So I guess somehow most AHJs and commercial balance dictates that this is the kind of proportion. But yeah, you're right, Worship. We could offer a few more rough installs which could be converted into potential EV charging stations in the future.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Barkwell.
Yeah, I'd just like to add my support to his worship's suggestion for the rough-in. I mean, I know EV is not being picked up very fast right now, but 20 years comes by really fast. And in 20 years, it could be a whole lot more, and it would be a shame to have to go to a great expense if it could have been just roughed in at this time.
Councillor Peak.
Thank you very kindly, Your Worship. Are there any spaces within the parkade for bicycles or that kind of thing, or are people required to take them to their apartments?
Let me, can I share the screen here?
No, well, I don't think it's possible. We would have had to arrange in advance.
Give me 1 second.
I just think yes or no would be good.
So give me 1 second. I wanted to show you something that will make things much easier to understand. We actually optimized our parking situation the best we could because we did not want to leave any situation. So we do have done some motorcycle stalls, etc., whatever was recommended by the bylaw, but facilities that were not required by the bylaw, we haven't provided for because we wanted to get as much number of parkings as possible. But we have some, for example, some motorcycle stalls were required and we did provide those.
So bicycle parking is required by our bylaw.
Yeah, and it has been whatever the numbers are required by the bylaw have been catered for.
Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Worship. With a reduction of just about 800 square feet of inside amenity, and then it's great that you put the exterior amenity at the gateway to Summerland. The problem that I'm having is that you have a hotel that's in the way of the apartment building that you're relating the amenity to, I'm having a hard time with that, where we've taken 800 square feet of amenities from the building, which is on the other side of the new hotel. And then you're saying, well, we're putting it at the entryway to Summerland. And so can you just go and explain to me the reasoning behind that?
Sorry, if you could repeat that again. If you give me 1 second, I'll quickly tell you the exact bike parking numbers. I was just pulling that up. We've got 2 per dwelling unit, so 168 Class A bike parking spots are provided. Okay, sorry. I wanted to give that complete picture to you. Sorry. Okay, could you repeat the question again?
Absolutely. So on our apartment building, we're reducing the inside amenity space by just under 800 square feet.
Yes,
400 square meters.
yes.
And it's great that we are looking at the gateway for the additional amenity space. My
Yes.
question is, can you tell me the reasoning that you have the apartment and then you have a hotel and then you have the gateway? So how is that amenity space at the entryway to Summerland a
Yes.
benefit to the apartments?
Okay, now, again, there isn't too much of a relationship between a little bit of a variance that we are asking for reduction in amenity space. This is essentially because the layout of the site has been designed sensitively with so much of landscape areas, patios, open spaces, plazas, etc., which are going to be beneficial for the residential community. The Gateway Plaza in itself is visualized to be an interactive space, not just for residents of the apartment development, to lesser extent people, the guests of the hotel, and quite frequently other residents of the community and the neighborhood itself. So it is going to be, for example, if I'm living in the apartment building, there is going to be my kids interacting with other people, and most of the time they do need areas where they can, for a brief interaction, get together, talk, share thoughts, and then go their own way. And that entry plaza is going to act as a catalyst for such interactions between people and user groups of variety, not just for the apartment building, but maybe for the guests, from people from the other parts of the community, etc. So reduction, though, of the amenity space, though it's kind of marginal, it is quite common to ask for a reduction when other amenities are being provided. In this case, it isn't significant, but the entry plaza that is being developed is going to probably add much more value to the interactive quality, which usually an development owned amenity is unable to offer, because it sometimes act as a deterrent, and people are hesitating to go into public development to interact themselves. Hopefully that answers the question.
I think the idea is it's more of a community amenity. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. So in another way to look at this, what you're offering us is a urban park in lieu of amenity space for the apartment building.
To an extent, yes, but we are offering the amenity space for the building, though it is slightly lesser. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
CEO?
Yeah, I think Mr. Penner had a further clarification, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I think it might have already been answered through that conversation, but the variance for the on-site amenity is separate from the gateway feature that's being included as a community amenity contribution as a condition of rezoning. So separate, but just, something that could be accessed by residents in the building, but not directly connected to the variance request for the development permit.
Okay. Anybody else? Councilor Van Elfen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd be happy to move the staff recommendation.
Okay, if we just get that on screen, do we have a seconder? Councilor Trainer? Any further discussion? Councilor Markle?
I'd just like to note that they've got 121 parking spots for was it 84 units? And I'd like to, hopefully we'll see how that works out, because parking is always a concern for me anyway. And there'll be higher density in the surrounding houses with this Bill 44, and people hate it when other people park in front of their house. And we are going to be seeing more proposals like this. And I think that we're also going to have to consider the amount of parking each of these proposals have, and get a feel for how well the ratios are working. So I'll certainly set this one aside and reference it when we get another application similar.
Okay, thank you. So when the hotel came up, we were talking about changing the road so that Julia is extended all the way to Rosedale and then Turner ends at Julia. The renderings didn't really show that, but is that still the plan? Anybody?
Yeah, through the mayor, I can take that one. The most recent plans continue to allow traffic to flow as it currently does today, with some minor variations, like an intersection adjustment angle for what would be, I guess, Turner to come in to Julia Street at a more perpendicular angle for better sightlines. There's some traffic flow changes that we're looking at on Rosedale Avenue that will allow for better queuing for the left turn onto the highway. And then also some traffic calming measures on Julia Street. So traffic will continue for the most part to operate as it does today with some minor geometric changes.
Okay, thank you. No further discussion. I'll call, Councillor Van Alphen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm excited about this project. Have been for years wanting to see something developed at our gateway. Back in the day, one of the buildings was housed by a house of worship and they relocated across the highway. So it's always been sewer there. So it's, I'm happy to see this development, but I just want to mention to the developer if they would keep in mind that we have a builder's mart that supplies lumber and building materials. We have a concrete supply company. We have a rental center that rents porta potties to excavators to bobcats. So please shop Summerland. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Oh, sorry, it's the wrong motion that's on the screen. That's the last one. So it'd be 18 points. No, it should be 18.2, but that's 18.1. No, that's 18.3. Yeah, that's it. You just got them back to front. Okay, so we're all good? Councillor Betts.
Thank you. My comment is to the developer. I'm in support of what Deputy Mayor Trainer was suggesting about perhaps some artworks that showcase the grandeur of Summerland, just perhaps in a slightly different manner. If you could come back to the table with that. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take that under advisement, I'm sure. So, I'll call the question. All in favor? And none opposed. That carries. Okay, 18.3 OCP amendment and zoning bylaw amendment for 2 properties on Prairie Valley Road. And Mr. Penner.
So yeah, presenting a rezoning application number Z23005 for 12914 and 13316 Prairie Valley Road. So the purpose is to redesignate these subject properties to medium density residential and to include one of the properties into the district's urban growth boundary is contained in the official community plan. And to rezone the subject properties to residential medium density through site-specific zoning regulations in the zoning bylaw. So you can see the two subject properties there located along Prairie Valley Road, just south of the Eco Village site, which sort of sits up a little bit higher on the hill. So just in terms of overview in the neighborhood context, so, these properties are located sort of at the bottom portion of Cartwright Mountain. It is a rural landscape, so surrounded by agricultural uses and lands that are within the agricultural land reserve. It's, as I said before, it's adjacent to the Eco Village site. It sits just south of where the solar farm is going to be, I believe, or is being currently is. The site itself, in terms of municipal servicing, there is existing water service that runs along, both properties. There is no sewer service in place at this moment, but it is planning to be added as part of a reconstruction project for Prairie Valley Road in the fall of 2024. And just a note, a little cart before the horse, but as part of the rezoning application, the developer has agreed to cost or pay for the cost of the sewer extension for the portion that fronts along both properties, in the context that the OCP and rezoning amendments are approved. So in terms of official community plan, there's sort of two properties here, but through this project, they would in essence become three. So currently, the property on the left, which is 13316 Prairie Valley Road, the official community plan designation is low density residential intensification. The property on the right side or on the east side, which is split into two, is 12914 Prairie Valley Road. And a portion of the site is currently designated as rural residential, and a portion of the site is designated as agricultural. So what's proposed is for the LDRI and the RR areas to be redesignated to medium density residential, and that agricultural portion on the east side to remain as such. In terms of zoning bylaw or the current zoning for both properties, so 13316 on the west is currently zoned as residential urban zone, so RU2. 12914 Prairie Valley Road on the east side is currently zoned for country residential. And again, what's proposed is for both properties to be rezoned to residential medium density. And then a portion of 12914, which is on the east side, to remain as country residential. So that was that area that we saw before that was designated under the OCP's agricultural, that would remain as country residential. So you can see there a little bit better, that orange line that wraps around the CR1, that would be rezoned or is proposed to be rezoned to residential medium density. And then the outlying portion on the furthest east side of the site would remain as country residential. So just a little bit of the background history of both sites. So in 2016, 12194 Prairie Valley, so that eastern parcel, was subject to an agricultural land commission decision, which provided approval for the exclusion of that property from the ALR. And that approval was subject to a 2.2 hectare subdivision, being completed on that site. In 2019, a variance permit was issued by the district for 12914 Prairie Valley Road to amend landscaping requirements in the zoning bylaw to enable some road improvements that were done at the time. In 2022, 13316 Prairie Valley Road, so that's again the west portion or the west parcel, was rezoned to residential single detached intensive, redesignated to low density residential intensification, and also added to the urban growth boundary. And that parcel sits outside of the agricultural land reserve, so it's not part of it. So following the land use changes to 13316 Prairie Valley Road, a subdivision application for 13 Bearland straddle lots was submitted. through back and forth with the district, the applicants, which are, it's jointly between the two landowners, are now revising the application to rezone to residential medium density to accommodate the addition of duplexes, multi-unit housing, and townhomes. So in terms of the background history in the agricultural land reserve, so that orange polygon area is to be excluded and subdivided out of the agricultural land reserve. The remaining portion on the east would remain within the ALR. So the landowner received conditional approval from the Agricultural Land Commission to exclude that orange polygon area with a sort of approval timeline into 2024. And that conditional approval, the condition attached to that conditional approval was that subdivision approval would be provided by the district. So basically the district would allow that lot to be subdivided into two, would trigger the exclusion from the agricultural land reserve. And to do that, OCP and zoning amendments are required. And it was just noted from the ALC that the support for excluding that from the agricultural land reserve was just due to the low agricultural capability and potential of that site. You know, it's fairly steep. It's never really been used for any agricultural uses. Where the existing portion of the site that is used for agricultural uses would remain in the reserve. So the proposal, and again, it's very conceptual in nature, is to you know, complete the OCP and zoning amendments to allow an approximately 30 to 35 lot or unit strata development, and you can kind of see it there on the site plan. So through a mix of, you know, 3 unit and 4 unit townhomes and a duplex. Developing the lower lying or more southern kind of portion of the site that runs along Prairie Valley Road, which is more of the flat area on the site, with the majority of both parcels remaining largely undeveloped where the steep slopes exist. So, and I should just note that the intention for both landowners and applicants is to work together. And eventually when this OCP or rezoning amendments, if they get approved, both owners would be looking to sell. So the development may look a little different in the future, but this is sort of what's envisioned or what's being proposed at this point in time. As part of the OCP amendment request, there's also a request to expand the district's urban growth boundary to include the orange highlighted portion of 12914 Prairie Valley Road, which currently is outside the urban growth boundary. And again, that's just needed to facilitate residential development. So this is, again, just a site map showing the actual OCP amendment request. So 13316 on the left, and 12914 on the right. So again, to redesignate to medium density residential to allow for the envisioned townhome residential development. So the medium density residential designation, again, the intent of that designation is to accommodate an increasing need and variety of housing forms within and you know, within existing and also future residential areas. And also to support medium density housing developments in close proximity to existing or proposed low density developments and higher density developments. So really acting as that in between, that sort of transition between higher density development and lower density, you know, more traditional single family areas. The policies within that designation include allowing a mix of low-rise apartments, townhomes, multiplex, row houses, cluster housing, bare-land strata housing, and so forth. Other key policies include the retention of mature and healthy vegetation whenever possible. In terms of the zoning amendment request, so on the right, 12194, so to rezone that from country residential to residential medium density, again with site-specific provisions. And the same for 13316 Prairie Valley Road, so to rezone from residential urban zone to residential medium density zone with site-specific provisions. And it should be noted, the zoning, the RU2 zoning on 13316 Prairie Valley Road, that was recently enacted as part of the Bill 44 zoning changes. So through that, there was like some zone consolidation and that's what it ended up with. But again, the applicant is looking to rezone to RMD. So saying the residential medium density zone, the purpose of that zone again is to provide a zone to accommodate the development of apartments, townhousing, duplex housing near existing and proposed low density developments on lands that have full services and also accommodating cluster housing developments of single detached housing and bare land strata. So as we mentioned before, there currently isn't full municipal servicing to the site. It just has water, but as part of that Prairie Valley Road reconstruction project, there will be sewer that will be able to accommodate a development of this type. And the applicant has committed to paying for their share of that extension, for the portion that runs along both properties. In terms of the site-specific zoning requirements that have been proposed. So these are really to enable development on what is like a unique site. So due to the topographical kind of constraints, like there's steep slopes on portion of the site, the current our residential medium density zone just isn't completely aligned or really context sensitive in that case. So the current RMD zone is really, designed, to accommodate like properties that you'd see like, in kind of the downtown and surrounding area. So this is, again, a much different site. So some of the site changes that are proposed include a slightly smaller minimum lot area and minimum lot width, and then some reductions on the building setbacks, including small reductions on the front, rear, and side setbacks. There's also been agreement from the applicants as part of these site-specific changes to reduce building heights. So buildings that sit on the upslope would have a maximum height of up to 3 stories, and those sitting on the downslope would have a maximum height of up to 2. Should be noted that the RMD again currently allows up to 4 stories, but when factoring in the slopes and topography of the site, it was just felt that having a lower maximum building height would again have less impacts aesthetically, also on, sightlines, viewpoints, and so forth. In terms of other regulations, so there is one other site specific change that's been proposed, and that's in relation to requiring any areas that would be disturbed or any areas that like any areas that are like maybe impacted through the development of lots that are greater than 30 meters in area or 30 square meters and exceeding 30% slope would have to be rehabilitated with site appropriate native vegetation and drip irrigation. So basically, like as these lots would get built in, any area over 30 meters squared that has 30% slope that gets disturbed, the applicants or the developer would have to go in and put in vegetation with irrigation systems for 2 years to a point where, that vegetation would take and grow and thus like stabilize like the slope. So as I mentioned in the past presentation, a consideration with this application is just going back to Bill 44. So on June 11th, you adopted a new Schedule A to zoning bylaw 2450, which was the requirement of the province of BC. Again, like that Bill 44, small scale multi-unit housing zoning. So that included changes to density and height for all residential zones in the district. So even if this proposed rezoning was denied, this east or west property could still be redeveloped into RU2 strata development because that's what it was rezoned as through the Bill 44 amendments. Following the extension of the sanitary sewer, right? Because that's a requirement in order to build to that level. So it would still allow, 4 units per property in the form of either duplex, multi-unit housing or townhousing formats. So that parcel could be subdivided and multiple, 4-unit developments could be constructed there once that sewer is in. So again, the proposed rezoning here isn't too far off what is already enabled through the existing zoning for at least the western parcel. Well, when the application was reviewed internally, the comments included requiring further geotechnical investigation to determine a safe buildable area, having minimum fire hydrant spacing of 180 meters, having a storm management plan with special considerations for the steep slopes that are included on the site, ensuring that the proposed development is connected to sanitary sewer at the developer's cost, and the design of the connections to be included, including paved cycling lanes along Prairie Valley Road and street lighting. The fire department noted that the property is outside of the fire department's 10-minute response zone. So depending on the lot layout and, building construction plans that come in the future, and there may be additional, building code separation requirements. There may be other requirements for sprinklers and other on-site fire suppression items. So in terms of the external referral comments, so BC Transit, just mentioned encouraging additional commercial development in Prairie Valley to promote future transit expansion into the area. They also noted to amend the plan to include safe and accessible pathways down to Prairie Valley Road with street lighting, and to ensure that the development is universally accessible by incorporating, again, accessible features like ramps, doorways, tactile signage, and then enhancing safety and crime prevention through environmental design, again, through lighting, clear sight lines, natural surveillance features. Fortis mentioned, depending on development load requirements, again, to be determined in the future, the existing facilities may or may not have sufficient capacity and upgrading may be required. Interior Health noted the district should just continue to invest in active and public transportation in alignment with the goals included in the official community plan. And the Ministry of Agriculture noted that rural residents on lots next to intensive agriculture are likely to make farm practice complaints. So steps should be taken to mitigate this through, proper edge planning. And that they also recommended that a covenant be placed on the title of these residential lots in the future to say, or to note that they are in a farming area and that future residents may be affected by farm practices, including those that produce noise, odor, and dust. The applicant held a developer public information meeting on July 3rd. So that was attended by 12 members of the public who expressed comments including, whether the developers or the current applicants were planning to develop themselves. And the developers, as I mentioned earlier, have noted that their intention is to sell the properties after the OCP and rezoning amendments, if they are approved. There's concerns about the proposed design for and how that might impact Prairie Valley Road reconstruction. Questions about, cost sharing and who's going to pay for the sanitary sewer extension. And, the developer applicants noted it was their intention to cover that. There were concerns expressed about the density proposed of the residential or medium density zone and how that could fit on such a difficult slope property, concerns about traffic and traffic impacts as a result from development, and so forth. The OCP and rezoning amendments were also presented to the APC on March 22nd. So some of the comments again noted opposition to the development as it's located outside of the urban growth area, urban growth boundary, and the location steep. And just to note that only one of the parcels is outside of the urban growth boundary. And the one that's actually closer to the downtown is the one that's outside, interestingly enough. The new hillside zone. So originally the thinking with the applicants was to create a new hillside zone. So basically a spot zone that would come into effect for these two lots. The APC had some concerns about that and suggested looking at more site-specific zoning regulations, which is a bit more of a simpler process, which is what's been done. There are questions as well as why the scale of the project has grown since it was last proposed. So historically, one of the parcels, the owner was seeking to develop 2 country residential lots, and now the kind of plan is to look at doing some townhouse or row house type development. Some questions on that. It was also noted that receiving amendments for the official community plan or the OCP and zoning amendments are just like one step in the development process. So The APC also noted that, there'll be like development permits that will be required in the future to address things like form and character, in the environment and so forth. And the resolutions included, that were carried included, that the APC supported, the official community plan bylaw to redesignate a portion of 12914 Prairie Valley Road from rural residential to medium density and to be included in the urban growth boundary, and as well as 13316 Prairie Valley Road from low density residential intensification to medium density residential. They also carried that zoning amendment for both properties be denied. So that, again, that was the spot zone that was this new zone that was sort of proposed at the time. So not to, move ahead with this hillside multi-unit residential zone, but instead create site-specific zoning provisions through the zoning bylaw. Again, so basically attaching some site-specific zones to the existing residential medium density zone. Then finally, that the APC does not support including that new hillside multi-unit residential zone within the zoning bylaw, as that could be applied to future hillside areas designated for medium density residential in the district's OCP until further study and research of the proposed zoning regulations is reviewed. So in terms of discussion, the urban growth boundary, as I mentioned before, in 2022, the property at 13316 Prairie Valley, so the property on the west side was added to the urban growth boundary, and extending it, again, to facilitate medium density residential development on the land. The site itself is in relatively close proximity to the downtown and nearby neighborhoods. The Agricultural Land Commission has provided, again, approval in principle or conditional approval for the portion of the site that's outside of the growth boundary. So they've signaled that, this is something that can be taken out and developed. There's, again, existing water servicing. There's going to be sewer servicing, coming in the fall. So for those reasons, there's staff feel that an extension to the urban growth boundary for the eastern parcel would make a lot of sense and sort of align with precedents that have already been set in the area. So that highlighted portion right there. In terms of the proposed OCP amendments to redesignate the properties. So again, both are close to the downtown. They have proximity to residential amenities and are located along a residential collector road. So again, have access to a thoroughfare through the community. Again, this proposal would facilitate the development of additional housing options in the community. And should be noted that, again, it sort of aligns with the kind of bill form and, land uses that are being proposed for the Eco Village site just north of these two lots. So just sitting up on top of the hill. And that in the future, there are, if this does move forward, that the applicant or the applicants are going to be required to seek development permits for any future development on the site, including a multifamily development permit, a wildfire development permit, and environmentally sensitive area development permit. And then for the site-specific zoning, as I was saying before, the current residential medium density zoning is really more oriented towards like flat, like urban centric lots, like, think of bigger lots that are close to the downtown. So when we start getting into like more hillier areas or into sites that have more unique layouts or, kind of boundaries, so to speak, it just doesn't apply as well the same way. So, again, due to those constraints, site-specific zoning is needed to enable the proposed or conceptualized development by maximizing the developable area of both properties, given the constraints that are there. And the site-specific zoning changes are really focused on just minimizing some of the setbacks and building heights, just to account for slopes and the limited buildable area that is on both sites. So again, really just trying to account for the uniqueness, and we can't, put a square peg in a round hole all the time. Sometimes we need to modify and try to be accommodating. In terms of the environment, so there has been environmental site assessments completed for the properties. And, you know, basically, the development areas really are focused on like the southern kind of boundary of the site. So they kind of stay away from any of the areas that were identified as having high habitat value in the ESA. So that's more along like the northern portions of the site. And those are proposed to be protected from development. And the environmental site assessment recommended to have a conservation covenant placed on title to ensure that no development happens on those upper portions of the site. But just given some of the constraints, it would be like rather impossible to, or impractical to develop anything up on those areas anyways. So through that, the staff recommendation is for council to provide first and second reading to the official community plan bylaw number 2024-16 to redesignate a portion of 12914 Prairie Valley Road from rural residential to medium density residential and to be included in the urban growth boundary. Also to redesignate 13316 Prairie Valley Road from low density residential intensification to medium density residential. And that the process outlined in this report dated July 23rd, 2024 be considered appropriate consultation for the purpose of Section 475 of the Local Government Act. And that council also provide first and second reading to zoning amendment bylaw 2024-17 to rezone a portion of 12914 Prairie Valley Road from country residential to site specific residential medium density zone and to rezone 13316 Prairie Valley Road from residential urban zone to site specific residential medium density. And then a public hearing be set for August 13th, 2024 to hear comments from the public on both amendment bylaws.
Okay, thank you very much. Council, questions? Councillor Patton.
Thank you for the report. I think my first question goes to Bobby. Will we be looking at, if we go to this new zoning, will we be looking at taking some more road frontage off those two, off of 12914 and 133?
Yeah, through the mayor. We've had very productive conversations with the applicants and their agent in consideration of the Prairie Valley Road upgrade project. So this land dedication was needed for that road upgrade project and was valuable to get it before the project started. So we've already come to an agreement that that land dedication would be provided as part of subdivision or building permit. Yeah.
Thank you. If I may, I have one more question. So back in 2016, 12914 was when they did their 2-lot subdivision was taken out of ALR. It was is what I understand. So why is there a deadline to remove it from ALR in 2024 if it was already done in 2016? Or did I misrepresent that?
It's still.
So the parcel on the west side has been excluded. The parcel on the east side is still part of the ALR, and they've only provided conditional approval on the basis that the district approve a subdivision for that property, basically to sever like where the kind of vineyard is from the other portion of the site.
Thank you. For some reason, I thought that when it went through and getting taken out of ALR, even though it went to country residential, that it was actually taken out of ALR. And so I was in my head, I had a hard time. Thank you for explaining that.
They had to do some downloading in there, had to work it in there somehow. CO?
Yeah, I think the connection is it was approved subject to subdivision, and the district subdivision was sort of subject itself to provide provision of a rock cut and some widening for our corridor there. And that's still just being in the final, the short strokes of being resolved.
Councillor Peak?
Thank you, Your Worship. Dan, can you show me, I see where the internal road for the combined properties comes from the west. Can you give me an idea where that is on Prairie Valley Road? I can't tell for sure.
Sorry, can you just repeat that
So
question?
the internal road, sort of behind the first buildings, is going to come from the west. You're not coming off of Prairie Valley on the east side for this development.
Yeah, you can see sort of an access road that comes right off of the bend. So turning right at the very top left corner there of the image. Yeah.
Thank you. That's what I'm trying to see, is where it is on the road itself.
Yeah. Yeah, it is to clarify as well, like what's presented here is still like very highly conceptual, and there may be modifications, kind of post sale, like when both landowners, their intention is to sell. So things could change. But this is, again, what's being proposed at this stage.
I understand that. I just think safety wise, that's the way to go.
Yeah.
The other question being that the property on the east, they'll maintain all their driveways for what they have now. Okay. And do things have to be concurrent? So is it the people that own this now that will develop the sewer area, or will it then be when it gets sold?
I'll take that through the mayor. The sewer is being built in as part of the Prairie Valley Road project. Doing these upgrades now at the same time as the road is the optimal time to do it. We don't want to be opening up new road after it's been paved and whatnot. So as far as the timing goes, it's going to be the current owners, the current applicants that are paying for this, that have agreed to do this, and not any future developers down the road. It would just be too late at that point.
Thank you both very much.
Councillor Betts, then Barkwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So it might be putting the cart before the horse in terms of this question, but I'm just thinking ahead to having the potential for additional, just more homes and more people in that area as compared to the older proposals. And my concern would be around safe road access for the people in this neighborhood, whether that's kind of coming up at Morrow or whatnot. That's a difficult corner even right now. If you're coming out from up where the solar farm is, if you try and go up there and have to turn around and come out, it's a tricky corner. And so I would just note that, if there's road upgrades talking about happening right now, but if there's going to be a bunch of additional housing and residents in there that need to come out at that corner, that might need to be considered, or it would benefit to be considered at this design phase of Prairie Valley Road for that corner.
Okay, I think that was noted. Councillor Barkwell.
Yes, a couple of times you said that the applicants would only be paying for the sewer extension for the part on their frontage. Because what about the distance? I think the sewer probably terminates somewhere around Cartwright, right? And there's quite a distance from Cartwright to their properties. We're not expected to pay that for that, are they? Are we? That should be borne by the developer.
Yeah, through the mayor, that's correct. The developer is paying for all and any aspects of the sewer being installed from where it needs to be connected at Dark Avenue on Prairie Valley Road, all the way to and along the frontage of the subject properties. The district is not incurring any extra costs by doing this.
Also, one of the other neighboring property owners spoke to me at one time that he had, I don't know, visions of maybe someday getting a portion of his property out of the land reserve, and he's on the south side. Has he been involved in any of the discussions on this development? Because I advised him of what was going on, and that if he wanted to be involved, now would be the time to do it. I'm just kind of wondering if he's part of the plan, or it's kind of a longer term for him.
Yeah, through the mayor. I'm not exactly sure which property you're referring to. There's a couple on the south side there. However, I believe almost every one of them have been consulted with as part of a couple open houses that they've done. Potentially the zoning one. I wasn't at that one, but there was also a sewer open house a couple months back, which was fairly well attended. But I mean, everyone's going to get a connection, at least one. Their intent is to enter a latecomers agreement to recoup some of their costs, if not all of them. I'm not sure if everyone's appetite is the same, but they'll have that opportunity at least.
Certainly he's had the opportunity to be aware. I just wondered whether he was actively trying to do anything. Well, okay, thanks.
Councillor Van Elfen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move staff recommendation.
Okay, do I have a seconder? Councillor Patton? Okay, it's on the screen. Any further discussion? Councillor Betts?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to note that it seems like a sensible proposal in the end because it's the easternmost parcel that is requesting to be in the urban containment boundary when the one to the west already is. And so I can see how that makes sense. I like that they're keeping that the one piece country residential and as an agricultural intention. So those other parcels are not, they're not farmable. And so I can appreciate this kind of proposal. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Peak?
Thank you, Worship. I want to commend the staff and the owners of these properties because I think en route, they have indicated what they were interested in, the opportunity with legislation change and urban boundaries. The urban growth boundaries gives us the impetus to make this happen. I think it's very sensible. And the fact that we're going to get upgrades on the an extension of the water and sewer there, I think that all adds to the livability and housing within our community. So I think it's a very good example of what can be done.
Okay, yeah, it's worth taking to a public hearing and that would be at our next meeting. I'll call the question. All in favor? And none opposed. That carries. Moving on to business arising, 19.1, corporate officer.
Thank you, Mayor Holmes. So as committee of the whole meetings occur in its entirety when council sits as a committee to consider items in more detail and report findings and recommendations to governing body, which is the council. The resolution is before council, made by council and committee, passed at the July 2nd, 2024 committee of the whole meeting. And it's just now before council for final consideration.
Just get that up on the screen. So this is, we've already voted on this in committee. We just have to vote on it again now. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we want to bring this forward? Yeah.
I'll bring it forward. I just have a question for our CEO. What was our discussed timeline for staff coming back to us with more information?
Thank you for the question, Deputy Mayor, through the mayor. What we had talked about in the meeting is when we have our quarterly updates on the strategic priorities in September 3rd, if I remember the date correctly, that we would talk to council further about the specific timing because we just need some time to plan around this, some other work. So it'll be on September 3rd. We come back with further conversation about how it fits in the future of timing.
So you'll remove it? Yeah, seconder, please. Councillor Patton. Any discussion? Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just going on what the deputy mayor said through to our CAO, I've had several phone calls on this already. People are very concerned. There are a lot of grant programs available right now, and people are looking at these programs, but also concerned about the changes that may be coming in. So sooner the better. Please. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it should be clear that it's not being canceled. It's on pause and people can still install solar. It's not as if we're not allowing people to install solar. They can still do that. So, okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? None opposed. That carries. Notices of motion? Does anybody have a notice of motion? No. Councillor reports. Anybody have a report? Councillor Barco.
I would report that everywhere I went, Mr. Mayor went. So I have nothing new to say.
Councillor Pete.
I want to say how proud I was of the community and the turnout we had at the pier opening, and how nice it is to have four-season washrooms in the waterfront park. I think that's a real upgrade, and it will be wonderful to get washrooms in our downtown that are four seasons as well. Where we were at the fire station, just everyone was so happy, and there was such a contingent of young people that came to the 75th anniversary for the fire department. It was real fun, and I want to commend the fire department on. It was laid out beautifully. They were very organized, and there was lots of great discussion. And I do want to thank all of them for making that as good as it was. And congratulations to the department.
Thank you. Councillor Pat.
Thank you, Worship. In regards to the pier, I think what we need to do is really give a shout out to Rotary. Rotary did express at the pier opening that they've raised well over $100,000 for amenities to go towards the pier, which shade structures, lighting, benches. But also at the same time, when we opened the pier, Penny Lane gave a cash donation, as well as the credit union gave, totaling between the two of them another $24,000. And I think that we really have to thank Rotary for stepping up and doing what they are doing for our community, because it is absolutely phenomenal. So yes, I for one would say thank you, Rotary. That was it.
Okay, thank you. Well said. Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to report that the Summerland Sunday Market, I have a stall and I work there, and I'm the complaint department. And last Sunday was such a joy. I had probably a half a dozen residents come to me and said, "Oh my goodness, the pier. It's absolutely gorgeous. What a great job." And I said, "You haven't seen anything yet. There's potential for slides and rope swings and seating and shade." And they went, "What? Oh, I thought it was done." So people are really excited in the community about this project. And again, hats off to all the people that have contributed money. Thank you.
Somebody, I was at the Sunday market and people were stopping me too, talking about the pier, and I had an engineer stop me who wasn't really bothered by what the pier looked like, but he was really impressed with the understructure. And he said, that's going to last 200 years. So that's that was a different take, but people are impressed by it, but for different reasons, which is good. Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And on a note for the Rotary Sunday Market, I don't often get to chat with our guests too much because I'm too busy. But but at the pier, I just wanted to let our residents of Summerland know that Rotary is continuing to fundraise actually through September at the minimum. And so if you're still interested in contributing in any way to the pier, having a family plaque or having an organization come together, having a group of family members come together, that you still can do that and still have an opportunity to contribute. And that's all through Rotary. It's through the Rotary Summerland website. And I'd like to thank all the members of Rotary for their hard work as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Peak.
Mr. Mayor, when you were talking about the engineer talking about the underpinnings, I'm driving the kids down to the pier, and the 9-year-old grandson is telling me how well it's constructed underneath. Because I guess he was down there swimming when they weren't doing it. He said, "That is really going to last, Nana." And I thought, where did you get that from? So maybe he'll be an engineer someday.
Maybe future engineer. We'll need him. Anyone else? I just want to say, in my mayor's report this afternoon, I was talking about wildfires, and I reported there were 908 wildfires in the province. Since then, since we've been sitting here, there's now 973. So just in that time, there's been almost 70 new fires started just since we've been sitting here today. There's been 119 wildfires started in the last 24 hours. So it's not only is it hot and dry out there, but the lightning strikes, the wind is really causing problems. We're really lucky that we don't have smoke right now, but we're surrounded by it. And we just heard the news about Jasper today. And so it's nervous times. And so I think we all need to be vigilant. So, Councillor Shane.
I'll just add to that. I wanted to thank our fire chief for closing Giant's Head Mountain. I always get really nervous in the summer because when you get cars up there, it's super dry, and also other activities that people do up there. So I really appreciate that he closed it, and I did hear from people that live around Giant's Head that are also very thankful. And then also this week when we had our highway closed between Summerland and Peachland, I was stuck in that traffic as they tried to put out a fire. So I'm very thankful that BC Wildfire was able to jump on that fire super quick. But again, I experienced firsthand what it's like to be stuck in traffic between our communities. And so when we go to UBCM in September, definitely, again, we need to highlight how important we need a second route. And you did mention you talked to Bo and Ma about that. So I think we just need to keep mentioning it because with all the traffic going back and forth, cigarette butts get tossed out the window. It's going to happen again along that highway. So yeah, definitely. I have a firsthand experience of what it's like to be stuck. And people go back and forth for medical reasons and medical and, work. So we need to get that addressed.
9:74 now. So one more start just while you were talking.
I wasn't here.
Councillor Nelson.
Thank you. I believe the one on the highway though was a vehicle that caused that fire. A vehicle that broke down, pulled over, and it caused the fire, if I'm not mistaken.
The one last week. Yeah, not the one the other day. That was a lightning strike.
The other one the other day, I was sitting on my front porch enjoying a conversation with my wife, and our house shook, our dogs went crazy, and you could see it, the bolt of lightning, and it was scary.
Okay, I think we'll need a motion to adjourn. Councillor